wood bonkers, and we believe that if you hit a person on the side of the head with this holy 2x4, they will feel nothing but pleasure and go immediately to heaven.
You believe that?
Well, you said believing is all that matters.
Yes, I did say that.
In fact, let me send you to heaven.
Hold on!
You're not supposed to duck.
Wait a minute! There are physical laws!
Quit ducking!
And one of those laws is that if you hit a person on the head with a 2x4, they will experience a lot of pain.
Wait, if there are physical laws to obey, then there must be spiritual laws to obey.
Now, I didn't say that.
Which means I may have to be concerned about truth. I may even have to examine if Jesus was who he claimed to be, which means reading the Bible.
Well, now, let's not get rash.
Another message from Lifeline Productions, the comic strip of radio at lifelinepro.com.
Sorry, Frank, but unless you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt there's a God, I'll never believe.
But Bob, every decision we make in this world requires faith. For instance, you got in this car.
That didn't require faith.
Oh, sure it did. I mean, how do you know I'll get us to work safe and sound?
Well, you've gotten me there in the past.
Right. You examined the evidence and decided it was safe to get in the car. But you don't know that I'll get us there safely today.
Hey, you come on, man. You're going too fast for this turn. Slow down.
Unless you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that these brakes are going to work, I'm not going to use them.
Frank, come on. There's a stoplight ahead. Use the brakes. They'll work.
Prove it.
Oh, wait, I can't.
Well, we just don't know about these brakes now, do we?
Whoa, we're gonna die!
Well, what do you know? The brakes do work.
Well, of course they do.
And Bob, the evidence that there is a God is as conclusive as the evidence that these brakes will work. You need to look at the facts and make a decision.
Another message from Lifeline Productions, the comic strip of radio at lifelinepro.com.
Hi, my name's Bob, and I'm a real nice guy, and I'd like to live in your house.
Excuse me, but do I know you?
As ridiculous as this sounds, this is what some people expect from God.
No, but that's okay. You see, I do a lot of nice things, like I give money to the poor, and just yesterday, I mowed my neighbor's lawn. You just ask anybody, they'll tell you I'm a real nice guy.
Some people believe that just by being good, God will let them into his home.
You can't live here just because you're nice.
What do you mean I can't live here? You let that little boy live here. Has he ever given to the poor or mowed a neighbor's lawn? I don't think so.
Well, of course he lives here. He's my child.
Oh, I see. And that makes him more special than me?
That's it. I'm calling the police.
You wouldn't expect to be allowed into someone's home if you were a stranger. Do you expect to get into heaven if you've never met its owner? Join God's family, get to know Jesus, and be welcomed home. Another message from Lifeline Productions, the comic strip of radio at lifelinepro.com.
Calling the unknown approaching vessel, you are on a collision course with us. Please change your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid a collision.
Recommend you change your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid collision.
When we are told to change course, we have a choice to make. Do we change or continue on the same path?
We are a naval ship. This is the captain speaking. I say again, divert your course.
No, I say again, divert your course.
Jesus gave us a choice to make when he said, "You are from below, I am from above. If you do not believe that I am the one I claim to be, you will indeed die in your sins."
Sir, we could change course here.
We have the right of way. I am not changing our course. Unknown vessel, this is an aircraft carrier. We are a large warship. Divert your course now.
This is a lighthouse. Your call.
When it comes to Jesus, what choice will you make? Another message from Lifeline Productions, located on the web at lifelinepro.com.
Excuse me, would you like to get in the lifeboat?
No,
It's very comfortable.
not as comfortable as a sofa in my stateroom.
Okay. Good evening.
Hello.
Have you seen the view of the ocean from inside the lifeboat?
Well, I never.
No, you don't understand. Excuse me.
Yes?
Please, get in the lifeboat.
Why?
There's some great food in there.
I'll stick to the dining room meals, thank you.
Jensen?
Yes, Captain?
Why aren't these lifeboats full of people?
They'd rather stay in the stateroom or enjoy the meals in the dining room.
Jensen, this ship is sinking.
Well, if you'd just let me tell them that.
We don't want to scare people into the lifeboats, Jensen. People would be offended. We might lose their business.
Excuse me, there's water in my stateroom.
We'll get someone to fix that right away.
The lifeboat's dry.
I don't want to get in your lifeboat.
The Bible talks about hell as a very real place. People need
somos el más libre y el más joven.
Shooting me, shooting hard rider, really? You gonna shoot hard rider? Don't even throw it away. Hard rider, really? Like
Apologies, I don't know if someone is trying to hack into our meeting, so we just placed him out.
.2 points.
I banked a lot on that stupid cat.
I'm sorry.
So to get into heaven, I need
1,000 points.
And
Dad?
Oh, yeah. Please keep us safe. Don't let me down now. Go ahead. Start the car.
Okay.
Very good. Now, back it out.
like strip of radio at lifelinepro.com.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us all this time. We realized there was actually a discrepancy between the flyer's time, which was having 1:30, and the time that I actually had advertised. But our host is also having some Wi-Fi issues. But Marcel, I see that you're connected. I don't know if you are able to speak. Seems that there might be still some issues going on. Okay, let's see. Let's give us a few more minutes, but you will be having the presentation one way or the other. So thank you so much again, and we hope that your day has been going well. So hold on.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just confirm that you can both hear me and see my screen.
Yes, I am.
Are you seeing the large screen or the small screen?
We're seeing a large screen. I was seeing a small screen beside it, like it's a presenter view or something.
You're not seeing
I'm
presenter?
not the projector. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. All right, so welcome. We'll be talking on the Columbo Tactic, how to defend your faith using questions. All right. So I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Columbo. All right. So the common seemingly innocent but strategic questions. His name is called by Greg, the queen mother of all tactics, because its simplicity and its effectiveness. Now, you may be wondering, why do we use questions to respond to objections, right? So it helps in various ways. It helps you to not misconstrue the objector's point of view when responding.
Well, my apologies as I was mentioning, there is a Wi-Fi issue on campus at this time. If it comes to it, I will probably have to take over the presentation and where I am located right now. But let's see, first of all, if we can actually reconnect to Marcel. But hold on for me. Thanks for your patience.
Given issues. All right. You're seeing present. Full screen. All right, so just continue on what I was saying. You guys can hear me and see me, right?
We can see now, but you were cut off for a while.
Yeah, we can see the screen now, right?
Yes. Why use questions to respond to objections?
All right. All right. So it helps to let the guard down. It relieves the asker of the burden of proof. So to the objector has to now clarify their objection and reduces the likelihood of you becoming tongue-tied to objections. All right. It puts you in the driver's seat, so to say. Since you ask a question, there's nothing to defend. Versus when they are making statements, right? And it also buys you some time in a conversation to help you think through your position more thoroughly. This is my favorite part about the whole tactic. It helps reveal weakness in the views of the objectors, making them do some research or some searching about what they're thinking about. All right. which I think is the most crucial part of the whole importance of using questions. Now, this is a tactic that it was not initiated by us, it was something actually initiated by Jesus, where he used questions to ask, to defend against a lot of hostility in different crowds. For example, when we're facing hostile crowds, he often asks leading questions meant to challenge his audience or silence his detractors by exposing their foolishness. If you remember, when they were asking about if they should pay taxes to Caesar, and Jesus asked them in Luke 20, verse 24, show me the denarius whose likeness is on the inscription does it have? And he says, it has Caesar, so give unto Caesar which unto Caesar, and give unto God which is unto God. In that way, he did not say, don't pay taxes to Caesar, but he led to another point. When he was asked about the baptism, he was say, was the baptism of John from heaven or from men? Luke 20, verse 4. Then he asked him when he spoke about the fact that how can you forgive sins? Then he's asked them, respond to them this way, which is easier to say to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven, or say, arise and take up your pallet and walk, implying that, the reason he had to forgive the sin is because the sin was a direct cause of what the illness was. He says, which one was easier? And that was found in Mark 2, verse 9. Now, I want to give you guys an example of how someone actually used this tactic to answer a question. An objection was on evolution. Now, I may have played it before, but I'm going to play it again so you guys can actually see and appreciate it. Okay? You guys can see my screen, my video screen, I should say.
Yes.
Okay.
I was speaking in one of the West.
You can hear it now, right? Also hearing audio.
Yeah, man, we're hearing the audio.
Coast universities, and while I was speaking there, I'd been invited to speak on a philosophical theme, and I arrived there, and this fellow who picked me up was really quite intimidating, and he took me to a health food restaurant before I began to speak. I've got nothing against health food restaurants. It's just that I've never seen too many healthy people in health food restaurants. You just go in there and you wonder what's going to come after the sunflower seeds are over, maybe more seaweed or something like that. And it was about 82 degrees, and there was a fellow sitting in the restaurant with a black cape, a black woolen cape that started at the top of his neck and went down to his knees. And where the cape ended, his leather boots began. And I said, oh my, where have I come? And I'm cynical enough to look in his direction and mutter to myself, I wonder whether he's a student or a subject. It just looks so strange. I don't know what kind of a place I'm going into. Evidence. And I said, do you believe in evolution? And he said, absolutely. I said, atheistic evolution? He said, yes. I said, I can't believe that an intelligent fellow will. I said, tell me something. Do you believe time plus matter plus chance has know what chance means to you? I said, I've books on the philosophy of chance. I said, but frankly, I said, if you take a coin to toss it into the air 9 times in a row, it comes down heads. The possibility of it coming tails the 10th time is 50-50. Chance doesn't have a body, doesn't have power. I said, frankly, I believe chance is nothing. Chance is no thing. I said, and just in case you don't, nothing as that which rocks dream about. Chance has created your brain. He said, yeah, I have to say that. I said, if time plus matter plus chance has created your brain, then truth as an absolute category no longer exists, because truth by nature is absolute. Time is changing, matter is changing, chance, whatever it is changing. You never get time, matter, and chance remaining the same. If time plus matter plus chance has created your brain, truth as an absolute category no longer exists, because if it is an absolutely truthful statement with the givens, it's true on Monday, true on Tuesday, true on Wednesday, so on and so forth. But with the fluctuation and flux of time plus matter plus chance, truth as a category no longer exists. He said, I believe that to be correct. I said, if that is correct, how do you know it is true that time plus matter plus chance has created your brain? Do you know what the boy said to me? He said, let's get up and go. He says, my field is science, not philosophy. I said, hey, wait a minute. I said, I got you now. I'm going to listen to you a little longer. I said, if I looked at you and said, my field is theology, not science, you reserve the right to laugh at me. But when you look at me and say, my field is science, not philosophy, I'm supposed to accept that as a very brilliant response. I said, you spent 7 years studying one insect in a San Francisco stream. In order to get that high-level sophisticated education to produce in your dissertation, you have spent 7 years studying that tiny little object, and you're telling me you're not a philosopher? I said, maybe you should read Einstein, who said the problem with us scientists is that we are very poor philosophers. And somewhere in the foundations of science, somewhere in the foundations of mathematics, somewhere...
Sorry, you guys are hearing it, right? I saw in the chat someone said they're not hearing anything. Wait, Stefan, you're saying you're hearing it? Or you're not? Oh, you're hearing now. All right.
In the foundations of physics and chemistry and geology and theology, at the foundation of all of these systems are some philosophical assumptions which you cannot deny. To deny them is to assert them. When you assert them, you prove them, and you cannot deny it without asserting it.
All right, so I hope you guys saw what he did. He started asking certain type of questions and what did he mean by when he said evolution. Does it mean theistic versus atheistic evolution? Because there is a difference, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about how to use questions to defend any attacks or objections against your faith. All right. So how to apply some examples. And while doing the presentation, feel free to ask questions. We do appreciate those type of questions, and it helps to build me as a presenter, and it also helps you as a guest to be more informed about the tactics. So we need to find purpose with your questions, right? So you have to be very strategic when you ask your question. There must be along a certain thought pattern so the objector can actually follow what you're saying. So you do one. You're also reversing the burden of proof by inference, and then you lead the conversation towards a specific direction. For example, if we're all Christians here, we'll lead the conversation towards a belief in God or to answer the objections that they have against God. All right? But why you start gathering question? It's about what is the root of this objection? Or what are the significance of what they put here? If you can find out what they put there, it makes it easier for point of contact to meet them where they are. All right. You also don't want to misrepresent the opposer's position. When you have a discussion with anybody, nothing is more frustrating than when the person is not perfectly representing your position. You feel like you're not making any headway in the argument or the discussion. So you want to clearly understand their position so that you can have a fruitful discussion to lead to some form of conclusion. And you need to also clarify the objection. All right. A lot of the times when people have certain, and we highlight it to them, it actually allows them to better understand their position and why it's safe, it's correct or incorrect. So here are some scenarios. Now you must have heard this statement before. Everything is relative, right? Anybody has heard that statement before? Everything is relative. That is a claim I think people have heard before. Right? More relativism. There is no such thing as absolutes. There is no
Definitely
such thing
have
as
heard that.
absolutes.
Yes, I've heard that.
All right. Now this claim, you should ask them, what do you mean by relative? All right. And the next thing you'd say is, would you apply that to your own statements? All right. Do you understand the first 2 points I've made? What do you mean by relative? Could you apply it to your own statement? Because that statement either includes itself or excludes itself. Because, and let me just get to the one. If it includes itself, that means everything is relative, because then that statement also be relative as well. But if it excludes itself, that say it again. If you say that everything is relative, and you ask them, what do you mean by that? And they explain to you. Right? You'd ask them, can you apply that to your own statement? Because it either includes itself or excludes itself. If it includes itself and say everything is relative, that means the statement is also relative and it doesn't go through all the time, thereby be self-negating. That's the first point. If it includes itself. If it excludes itself, then everything isn't relative, because this is a statement that excludes itself. Therefore, also negates its own statement. I'm hoping everybody can hear me clearly. Or am I still being a bit choppy?
It's a bit choppy on my end, but what I would recommend maybe is to turn off your video a bit, because that will save the bandwidth and maybe the audio will be better.
I'm sorry, the internet here is giving issues. Where did I lose anybody? I would just use my data. Did I lose any? Where did I lose anybody? Where did I chop holes? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I'm here on my end. I was just recommending that probably you can turn off your camera for a bit to save bandwidth. Unless I know you
okay.
probably
All right.
here.
You're right. Let me do that. All right, everybody can see my screen and everything. Please, if you're not hearing, just stop me. Where did I lose anybody anywhere? Technology. It can be obtained. Right. We'll work to present a view. I think the presentation just closed. I have to open it back up. Sorry about that. That's, I don't know what's going on. Sarah, please take over. My computer is just frozen.
All right, no problem. Let's see where I can chip in. All right, so we're doing a very interesting topic today. So far, I want to just review a bit of what was already presented. I wanted to ask, there were 3 reasons that were given as to like the purposes of our questions. Can anyone remind me of any reason or purpose that we might have for asking questions as a response to an objection? Wow. We're all shy. Oh, I see something here. The statement, everything is relative, begs the question of on what grounds can the opposer be sure of his or her opposition, whereas we have the Bible to use as the infallible word of God. Okay, that's a good point, because yeah, it is a fallacy. It's itself, when you make it is itself an absolute statement, yet it is trying to negate the existence of absolutes. So one purpose is to let the person think, realize any inconsistency in their argument. But other than that, so I'll just move on, since no one actually, other than Nardia, thanks for participating. But these are the 3 reasons, or the 3 types of questions that we can start out with when we are trying to reason with a skeptic, right? So first of all, our questions are targeting to gather information, right? Because we want to really see if we understand the context of what persons really believe, where they're coming from, because we can't necessarily assume that we're fully understanding. So information gathering questions, basically you want them to define certain terms that they use. So with Ravi Zacharias, that video that was shown, we heard the skeptic, or we heard the account of the skeptic actually using the term evolution, and evolution has so many different shades of meaning. You want to find out, is that person an atheist, or does he believe that God directed an evolutionary process? Because these different belief systems will definitely require a different approach. So you don't know how far the person has gone. So definitely first purpose of asking your questions is to gather the information. A second purpose for asking your questions is reversing the burden of proof. So oftentimes, especially if we're beginners in the faith, or we're not necessarily as apt to know certain evidences, but a good tactic is to try to encourage the person to give reasons for their own views, rather than you being put on the spot to supply an evidence that you don't necessarily know from your memory, right? So that is another tactic that you can actually, because oftentimes when persons ask you, okay, prove this, I don't see evidences for God, because I believe everything that exists is only something that's observable. Those who only believe in empiricism, for example, only think that what you can physically sense is the be all and end all of knowledge, right? But you might not have evidence in your mind, or an example in your mind, like, okay, even your use of logic is not something that's empirical, right? You don't you don't touch logic, you don't see the form of logic. It's something that is actually immaterial. But if that example is not coming to your mind, you can go and ask a question from the person for them to actually justify their own belief system without you having that burden of proof. So that's another tactic that we'll actually go a little bit more in detail with. I know all right, so we have less than half hour to actually do this. So let me just move on. And the third purpose of asking questions in apologetics is you want to eventually lead the conversation in a specific direction, because oftentimes in my own personal experiences with skeptics, you'll have, they tend to actually go all over the place with you. So if you answer something, they'll give you 4 other objections that take you from, okay, I don't believe the Bible because it accounts that light was before the sun. How did that happen? And then I don't believe the Bible because it has miracles, and it takes you all over the place. But you want to keep the person in a certain direction, especially towards the gospel message, right? Eventually. So you want to take control of the conversation in a kind way, in a gentle way, as 1 Peter 3 verse 15 says, that we must always be ready to give an answer to anyone who asks us of a reason for the hope that is in us, with meekness and with fear. But yeah, so you're still respectful because you're not jumping down their throat. You're asking them questions in introspect. So now for the meat of the matter that we're doing now is each of these categories of questions. We're going to give you examples and then hopefully maybe even help you or hear your feedback of how you would actually apply these for your own scenarios, right? So category 1 is information gathering questions, right? And Marcel was mentioning about the use of fact gathering questions. Of course, you get to understand what the person is thinking. You also do not want to misrepresent their position. So you really want to get clearly what they're saying, especially if their objection is vague. So you can actually tackle it more specifically. And we had gone with this example about everything is relative, right? So we want to define, what does he mean by relative, and would you apply that to your own statement? And then another example here that we're now moving on to is the claim, there is no proof for God. Belief in God is irrational. So I want to hear from someone, how would you can think for maybe 30 seconds, how would you normally, if someone comes to you and just tells you there's no proof for God, belief in God is irrational, without you necessarily supplying evidence from your life, although I don't want to exclude what your approach would be, but can you think of a way with questions that you could use to respond to this claim? Don't all come at once. All right, I guess you're all thinking. In the interest of time, let me just move on. Then, if you come up with something, feel free to put it in the chat and I will try to read. I see a chat. What do you mean by proof? Okay. Wow, both of you were twins, or were you Jessica and Jenny said the exact same thing? So yes, it's good that you are actually now trying to ask them to define proof. That is an approach. So what would qualify as proof for you? That's another way to put it, basically. What would you expect to see if God exists? That's another way to put it. So that's a very, very good approach. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Janice. You can feel free to also put other ideas in the chat as I move on, just in the interest of time, because we did start late. So yeah, definitions. What do you mean by God? That is, what kind of God do you reject, right? So we want to first of all see the what is the idea of God that they're having in their mind that they think there is no proof of. That is one other term that we need definitions for, because maybe they have a misconception of God. Is it that they think in a fairy tale God that just comes to your command, that will offer do as you ask in prayer. So maybe they might have had an experience that they were praying and praying fervently and they did not see an answer to prayer, and so now they believe God doesn't.
Sorry, I'm back. Do you want me to take over? Sorry for taking so long. I had to restart.
No, man, that's fine. I'm fine so far. Maybe after I finish this slide, perhaps, but because I'm in the middle of a thought.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, man. So I was just trying to flesh out the definitions that from this statement that you want to clarify. So we're saying about God, because I said there's no proof for God. We can first find out what they mean by God. What's their idea of God that they're rejecting, right? So as I was saying, perhaps they've had an experience where they had, no answer to a prayer that they really thought that if God existed and if God cared, he would have answered. But the God of the Bible, which we believe is the only true God, right? It's not that fairy God that goes to just or command. God knows why he sometimes does not answer our request with a yes, right? So and it's not all the time that we know what's best for us. So we want to clarify what is the idea of God that this person is rejecting and then saying there's no proof for God. And as was mentioned in the chat, define what would you expect to see if God exists. So the value of that question is, as I said, does a person have a warped view of who God is to begin with? So do we need to dispel their false idea of who God is? Or have they in fact rejected the God of the Bible? And we want to then go more specifically. So what specifically is irrational in your mind about believing in God? So you want to clarify the vagueness of their claim, right? So they just said a blanket statement, belief in God is irrational. So we want to find out, why are they saying this? And then we could also, as another fact gathering question, you can ask, since you're concerned about proof for God's existence, what kind of evidence would you find acceptable? I find that this one, which I've been mentioning from the beginning, this question pins them down, gives them a standard for them to actually declare as to where you would need to show them the evidence. So oftentimes people like evade that because that would show you the direction that you need to put the conversation in, because it it shows where their mind will be as to saying, okay, I will believe if I would be convinced if I saw evidence for miracles, or I would believe if this. So now you are actually putting them on the spot to say, okay, this is what I don't see, but if you can actually give me this evidence, I will really consider this. So you want to hear it from their own mouth. What is their standard that they would, that would at least open them up to search more, right? So it pushes the opposer to propose a standard by which his claim can be falsified. So it is extremely important. So if you don't have their own word of what kind of proof would be satisfying, an intellectually dishonest person can dismiss any effort that you make, right? So no matter how convincing your arguments and experiences are, if they said something that this is what would convince them, you can hold them back to that word, and then they will show themselves up that, okay, it's really that they're just dismissing the idea of God, not because there's no evidence. It's something else. Maybe they don't want to be accountable. Right, so I've reached the other part. I don't know if Marcel, you want to move on or if I should continue. I know you do have another presentation, although it's at 3, but yeah.
Okay, I'll continue from where you left off.
Should I stop sharing screen?
Yeah, and allow me to share screen.
Okay. All right, so while Marcel is sharing the screen, we just want to get your feedback. Has what we shared so far?
Sorry, you have not allowed me to share screen. It says host.
My. Okay, because it came off co-host again. Go ahead. Yeah, man. So I was just wanting feedback. If you have any questions at this time, or if you didn't understand something, or do you find it useful? You can always either unmute yourself or put something in the chat so that we at least will know where our audience is, because we it's really a training session. We want you to leave the session knowing how to actually apply it. So if someone in your next hour that you meet, you just start hearing them speak about something, you can actually apply some of these concepts in your life, right? So please, if you don't understand something, or if you want to practice something, or if you have a specific objection you want us to, dismantle or what's that word? To basically analyze, you can just let us know.
All right, so I'm just confirming that you guys can hear me same way, right? And see my screen?
See and hear.
Okay. So here's another fact gathering question. Claim that Christianity is basically the same as all religions, all other religions. The main similarity is love. We shouldn't tell others how to live or believe. I'm sure you guys have maybe heard that objection as well, right? Or basically, in another way, I think Oprah is one of the leading founders, leading persons of the charge right now, that all religions are the same, they all lead to God. You've heard it in one way or the other, right? Now, here would you tackle that question? You'd first ask them, how much have you studied other religions to compare the details to find a common theme? Now, most people have not done this research. They're just working up with what you call a talking point that they've heard somewhere in the ether, and they're just repeating it. They don't really truly understand that all religions aren't the same. And if you actually look at them, they're all different. All right, a lot of them hold themselves to be exclusive and say all the others are false, right? You see, a lot of them say contradictory things, so they all can't be the same thing. They have all contradictory statements. You have some of the religions who are atheistic religion, meaning that they don't believe in their God. Some religions don't have any heaven or hell. So it's impossible for you to say that all religions lead to God or all religions say the same thing. It's a lie. And you could also frame to say it's actually a disrespectful statement to make about people's religion, because you're now ridiculing or reducing the religion to one single point. And that's not the case. Again, you can ask questions. Now, the value of the questions forces the person to self-examine how naive they may be. Now, you may buck up on somebody or meet someone who actually knows what they're talking about. So you ask another question. Why would the similarities be more important than the differences? Now, we all hold things to be true, right? C.S. Lewis says it best. There are some elements of truth in every religion, but you have some religions more closer to the truth than others. For example, you say 2 + 2 is 4. That will be true, but you may have other people say 2 + 2 equal to 4.1, 2 + 2 equal to 4.5, 2 + 2 equal to 4.7. They have some element of the truth, which would be 4 in this instance, but you have those being more closer to 4 than others. You get what I'm saying? All right. So then you need to ask them, why is the similarities more important than the differences? All right. Now, the value of this question is to tackle any underlying assumption that similarities are more important than any differences, like aspirin and arsenic are basically the same because they're both come in a tablet form. Now, that is an insane statement to me, right? One helps, one kills. Then you can ask another question. If they're truly Christian, I'm curious, what do you think Jesus' own attitude was on this issue? Did you think that all religions were basically equal? Now, if this person is a Christian, they would actually stop and think that Jesus did not believe that all religions were equal. He described himself as being the only way. He says, I am the door, the truth and life. No one can come to the Father except by me. So you see that Jesus made a claim that there's only one way. So Jesus did not believe that. So if we're to say that, it doesn't make any sense. And then you could ask this question again. Is it telling people to love one another just an example of telling them how they should live and believe? So think about that. You just basically hit the nail on the coffin. Because they're telling you how to do something while telling you that you're doing something is wrong, but doing the same thing they're telling you not to. All right? So this shows the opposer how self-contradictory their statement is. So it helps to build, and I'm telling you, when you use these tactics on them, they will actually stop to reflect. No, I'm not telling you how to win an argument. I'm telling you how to convince someone of a different opinion to lead them to Christ, right? Show them a way to Christ. It's not to say, oh, I'm smarter than you, you know, mic drop or anything like that. It's not like that at all. Here are some scenarios where you can actually direct the conversation, right? Claim. You can't take the Bible too seriously because it was only written by men and men make mistakes. You also heard that claim before, right? First question you'd have to ask, do you have any books in your library? Were those books written by humans? Do you find any truth in them? Now, obviously, there are going to be mistakes in everyone, right? So you have to ask them a different question. Because the first question now, you're showing them that, okay, there are mistakes, because all books are made by men. So why would that be more true than the Bible? All right? Then you ask them another question. Is there a reason you think the Bible is less truthful or reliable than the books you own? This now tackles any underlying assumptions that they may have. The typical assumption they would have is about their Bible has been corrupted. All right? After I finish this point, I'll get back to how we can talk about that. Do people always make mistakes in what they write? All right? And if you make a mistake, how do you know it's a mistake? You'd have something to compare it to. So value of questions 1 to 3, let's suppose and think, why do they just trust some sources of information but not the Bible? It gets them to at least justify why the Bible is not at least worthy of consideration as other writings. All right? It gets them to at least to listen, thus opening the door to for their personal encounter. All right? The next question is, do you think if God did exist, he would be capable of using humans to write down exactly what he wants? If not, why not? All right. Now, the last question is to understand the opposer's underlying assumption about God and his abilities. Now, to talk about the fact that they say the Bible is unreliable, it's been a statement made throughout centuries, right? I would add another question to this. If you know that the Bible is made by mistakes, how do you know that? That's a question I would ask. So you should ask, how do you know that the Bible has mistakes in them? They will talk and say, but yes, but then you make the point, but no, the point I'm making is that you're saying that the Bible has mistakes. Men make mistakes. How do you know there are mistakes? For you to say that something has an error in it, you must know what is right? You must have some standard to be comparing it to for you to say that there's a mistake in this chapter. Where is that standard? And you wait for them to respond. Now, more than likely, they don't know the standard. And you have to tell them, say, did you know that it has been translated many times, right? They'll say, yes, it has been translated many times, and that's why it could have been lost through translators. Hold on, relax, take a deep breath. I'm just asking a question. If it has been translated many times, do you not think that there's an original text for them to compare the original translation to? They would say yes. No, this is actually there, I'm not remembering where the original text is, but they have actually have the original manuscripts. And when they do a comparison, line by line, for all the different translations, they say there's less than a 5% error. Again, less than 5% error of the original manuscript to this day for all the translations have been done. So they can actually track the errors, and they say it's less than 5%. Okay, I don't remember the exact percentage. I'm just saying less than 5%. But someone named Frank Turkey, who wrote the book I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, actually spoke about this in depth. I could actually send you a list. I could send you to his site, and you can actually read up more on where he speaks about this stuff. All right, Frank Turkey.
All right, and I just wanted to add that these so-called errors are really like grammatical and spelling, not any theological implication. Right, exactly.
Right.
Jessica.
Right, so those are not any serious errors. Thank you, Sarah. I didn't remember that part, but thank you. All right. There's another claim you hear often as a Christian. It is wrong to force your views on other people. You cannot legislate morality. Christians involved in politics violate the separation of church and states. First question you'd ask, do you vote? Well, more than likely they're going to be voting because they want their opinions to be heard. Then say, okay, fine, you vote. When you vote for someone, are you expecting your candidate to pass laws reflecting your own point of view? Obviously, they will say yes or they're, I shouldn't say more. They will be very sensible to be voting for someone who disagrees with what you want, right? Doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't that essentially be forcing your views on others? Now, that is how democracy works. It's the majority rules. What the majority says goes, all right? So when you vote in someone with certain policies, the majority saying we want these type of laws to be enacted versus others. How is that different from what you're troubled about here? Because you're now, in doing this, taking part in this voting process, you're actually changing the law to suit your view on morality. Now, the value of the question, let the opposer introspect whether they are guilty of what they claim others are doing. Right? So then you need to ask the next question. Is it your view that only non-religious people should be allowed to vote or participate in politics, or did I misunderstand you? Now, if they answer this and say religious people should not be able to vote, that is showing their bigotry. Right? That's showing that they have something against religious people and religious thoughts. And in doing so, they're forcing their morality on religious people by excluding them from the whole process, which are legal citizens, they're able to vote. Where specifically in the Constitution are religious people excluded from the political process? Now, there is no Constitution anywhere, to the best of my knowledge. If you guys know something, you can let me know. That it says because you have this belief system, you cannot vote or take part in any type of political arena, or you can run for prime minister or president or whichever position. MP. Can you give me an example of legislation that does not have a moral element to it? Every legislation that exists on this planet Earth pushes some form of morality on its inhabitants, all right, on the population. When you say though you should not kill, you're pushing a morals framework on the population. Do you guys agree? Does that make sense? When you say don't steal, when you say if people have to pay taxes by a certain, you're pushing a certain view that the government hold to be right on the population. So every law legislates morality. Just whose morality are you legislating? Are you legislating God's morality or are you legislating man's morality? Every law that exists on this earth legislates morality. That is just a fact. All right? Now the value of question gives an introspection on what the purpose of the legislation is. Is it morality? Isn't morality the only thing that a good government can legislate? Right? So morality, like I said, all government legislate some form of morality, one form or the other. All right, so I see something from Jessica Cohen in the chat. Taking a guess, I would say some Muslim-run countries may have restriction based on persons, if persons are Christians. Well, that is true. But that is rare instances. That's not majority. But your point is well taken, Jessica. I don't think in a Muslim-dominated country a Christian could rise to power. I think what they call is a heteronomous culture where the view at the top dictate what happens on the people at below, right? So I don't think you can rise up unless you're a part of that view. But I don't know that being a majority instance, but I do take your points. All right. Now you have some views that I describe, well, the book describes as that self-destruct, that negates itself, that makes no sense. All right. Now, you may have heard this statement before. Everything is meaningless, right? If somebody ever come to you and say, "Why, bro, I'm tired, everything is meaningless, everything's just pointless." And actually, if you look on these books, the books that describe everything being meaningless, they're so thick and have so many volumes of pages, you'll be wondering if everything meaningless, why is it so big? Right? It's meaningless. But here we answer this, state displayed. I assume that you assume that your statement was meaningful. Is that true? So let me say it again. I assume that you assume that your statement was meaningful. Is that true? Now the person would think about it and say, yes, what I just said was meaningful. Right? And this was actually an exchange done by Rabbi Zacharias, a Christian apologetics among. I found this exchange to be very humorous, as I put it here. Well, yes. The student responded and said, well, yes. Then his response was further to say, well, if your statement was meaningful, then everything was not meaningless, right? On the other hand, if everything is meaningless, then what you just said was meaningless too. So in effect, you have really said nothing. And you can take a seat. No, I kid you not. The student's response afterwards, when Rabbi was leaving the auditorium, said, well, if everything is meaningless and then it was meaningful, that means my statement was meaningful either, then everything I just said was meaningless. I was just in a loop over and over and over again until he came to the following, where he actually gave his life to Christ and found meaning for the first time in his life. All right, so chat is buzzing. Quote from Ecclesiastes. Good point. All right. Hold on. All right, so like I said, now this statement is self-defeating as it excludes itself, all right? Because if it excludes it, sorry, let me say it again. This statement is a self-defeating statement. If everything is meaningless, it either includes itself or excludes itself. Now, the presupposition is that it would be excluding itself, but if it excludes itself and it's meaningful, that means everything's not meaningless. All right? And if it includes itself, that means it's also meaningless. So everything's not meaningless. We describe views that self-destruct or they defeat themselves. And sometimes, most of the time when we make these self-defeating statements, it's not very obvious to the listener. All right? For example, the only rule here is that there are no rules, while that self is a rule. So these are some self-defeating statements we make very popular, and people don't recognize or pick up on it because sometimes it's very subtle. So that's why we have to ask questions to kind of draw that assumption out to somebody because they won't pick it up unless you point it out to them. And then once you don't say, you know, you're saying makes sense. All right. Now, this is a very popular theme I hear. I don't know if you guys hear it very often. Janice Wizard said, life without God is meaningless, but that's probably because we are Christians. Amen. From Jessica Cohen response. All right. This next thing, you shouldn't judge. Didn't the Bible say that, right? You're having a conversation, you say, boy, you know, this lifestyle is wrong, this is wrong, stealing is wrong, murder is wrong, whatever you may just say it's wrong. And they say, you shouldn't judge. Didn't the Bible say that? And they typically come towards you with some rightful indignation, like they say, they're speaking on behalf of God. I don't know if that ever happened to, but that's happened to me a couple of times when I made certain statements about facts that I disagree with, and I tell them it's from a biblical perspective why I don't agree. Miss Marie Brown says, this is the most famous statement in the world. Jessica Cohen laughs. All right. So this is a response that you can ask him. Are you saying you think that I am wrong for judging? Right? Ask him, are you saying you think I'm wrong for judging? And they will say, typical response is, yes. Jesus said you mustn't judge others, right? Okay, hope you're following the points. Response. Do you realize that you're condemning my act of judging others is also a judgment statement? The fact that you're telling me I mustn't judge is a judgment statement in itself. Do you realize that? Also, if you examine the scripture within the context, Jesus spoke about judging others hypocritically, not to judge people overall. The Bible always speaks about condemning sin, not the sinner. The sin you must condemn, but not the sinner. God loves the sinner, but the sin is what he says you're not supposed to tolerate. All right, so there's a difference. Nowhere in the Bible that Jesus ever says you must make a judgment claim. Jesus went around judging. They call the Pharisees hypocrites, you know, serpents, all sorts of things Jesus called people. So it wouldn't make sense, right? It wouldn't make sense to Jesus say don't judge and he's going around judging. And he makes some very critical statements of the religious people of the time. Jessica Cohen says, I believe Paul says we are to judge those in the church, God will judge those outside of the church. Okay, fair enough. But you're still making judgment statements, and we judge each other all the time. When you say something is good or something is bad, that's a judgment claim that you're making. All right. So this is a common objection whenever a Christian makes a moral statement about any situation. All right. And that is basically it for views that self-destruct. Now, these are just as very simple and short review of chapters 3 and 7. I didn't want to make it too long because I want there to be some of time available for questions. Anything you want to go over you're not sure about, you know, any uncertainties. It's time for you to know to speak. We have a online or in person. You can let us know what you're thinking or anything you want to be clarified a bit further. You can open your mic. I see we're still in the chats. Nardia, you can open your mic if you want. Say, I'm Nardia Nesbeth. I love the book that this material is found. Right, so it's available online. Okay, no problem. You have any questions? All right, no problem. So there are actually more examples, but like I said, I try to keep the presentation very short as to not to take up too much time. For those who don't know, the book is called Tactics. It goes way more in depth in these type of statements. By Gregory Cole. It helps you to actually break down out of the misconceptions and give you time to actually assess the objections, because I realize a lot of us as Christians are not able to break down a lot of the presuppositions that are being done. I don't know if you were here on the presentation we did about presuppositions and how they actually shape a worldview. A worldview is a series of ideas that describe how you view reality, objective reality, right? All right, so I'm going to read in the chat. Pleased with the information. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. You're welcome, Jessica. I hope it was beneficial to you. Nadia says these sessions speak to us realizing the great misconceptions out there and to make the bold move to put ourselves in a position to be used to be used of God to defend the gospel. Right. This is the whole purpose of the baby to better equip you to defend the gospel against any objections. Maureen Brown says great session. It is for us to practice. Right. And like I said, I'm not even a full master of this as yet. It's just comes down with time. Some persons who are more seasoned, you can actually pick up these objections very quickly than others. So like with practice, everything becomes a bit more clear. If you want us to do another session on this that further examines how to defend and common objections and how to tackle them, we could do so. Just let us know. Send us an email. You can send it to you have our email. We respond to you with Chosen to Glow. You can actually give us a list of topics you'd like us to challenge. Purchase the book. Sorry, we'd have to answer that. I'm not sure where you can purchase, but you can get it on Amazon. Let me just say, it's on Amazon. And if you have audiobook, you can actually get the audiobook on, it's called Audible. You can actually listen to the book on Audible. I'm kind of confused with the meaningless one, as someone mentions about Ecclesiastics. I'm not sure you're talking about Daniel.
Okay, I understand. Hi, everyone. I understand what Daniel is asking, because in Ecclesiastes, it says everything is vanity, vanity of vanities, but you do have to understand context. So even so in the scriptures, when it is mentioning that Solomon was in a state of searching, he was not, he was exploring the world, and he realized without God, that is the state of the world. Everything outside of God is meaningless. So money cannot satisfy, pleasures of the world can't satisfy, so everything is meaningless at that. So at the end of Ecclesiastes, he actually clarified and said that the meaning of life is to serve God and keep his commandments. The whole purpose of life. So that's Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13, I believe. Or yeah, around there. So nearly about the second to last verse or around there of Ecclesiastes. So I hope that clarifies. I did put the link to tactics in the chat. However, if you really, really would like, I can give a gift copy if you put your email address in the chat. Who asked? Janice? You can put your email address and I can send you a gift copy of the book. I'm willing to do that. I do have it on, I do have a copy for myself. So thank you, Marcel, as well. I know that you do have a presentation coming up, so I don't want you to be kept to not be able to prepare for the next presentation. And we do appreciate those of you who joined us, whether you were on campus or off campus online, and please do continue staying tuned. We started late today, but we are planning
to. We have actually someone who's here in person. He has a question.
Okay, Marcel, you can deal with that.
All right. Wait, can you hold on? You guys can hear him? Can you hear him?
Very distant.
You have to come close.
Wait. All right. I just wanted to get a summary on everything. So basically, when you're focused on like these type of questions, so it's just to break down the question to like its individual components, trying to pick out at any like
underlying assumptions.
So like assumption, biases, and so and just trying to see like where they collide or conflict or something.
Right. You want to pick out underlying assumption, biases, and also direct them to a path that leads a logical conclusion. You want to also gather information from these questions, understand why they object to what they object. All right? Because
so it's both.
Right.
So it's looking for a contradiction. It's also trying to figure out the background.
The background, and also helps us clarify their point questions. It takes the burden off of you to ask questions instead of you answering. Make a statement, you have to prove it.
So instead of scrambling for a response, you're trying to ensure that's what you're asking for.
Right. You're tackling exactly the heart of your question with a question. And that's what Jesus did each time. I hope you guys heard that.
We did. Thank you for the question, and do come again and tell your friends. I mean, we welcome those who are unbelievers. If you are just agnostic and trying to search, you're not sure what you believe, that you are the main ones we're actually targeting, although we do definitely want to strengthen Christians. So thanks again. And yes, so next week, God willing, I'll just share from my end then. For your own, I hope I have it open. We will be having a series from a special guest speaker who used to lecture in one of our major theological institutions, graduate school, or Caribbean Graduate School of Theology. I am trying to navigate to where I have the flyer so that I can just share my screen with it. However, let's see here. This is UWI. All right, yes. So we will be looking next week, God willing, at Faith and Reason. Is Christianity an irrational, blind faith religion? So let me stop the sharing. And see. I'm not seeing the photo. But you will, if you're on the email list or you're not on the email list, I should maybe say if you're not on the email list, you can put your email address also in the chat, and you will actually get notifications. What I might do, since nothing is open, is just copy it onto a PowerPoint screen because I'm not seeing it on the screen. Share options and just quickly show you. We have definitely expired the time that we normally would stay for, but we are grateful for your interest. Okay, so yeah, I've had it on a PowerPoint and I'm gonna reattempt to share my screen.
I could try.
In the meanwhile, all right, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, man. So, right, do we have blindfolds? I've encountered atheists who say that church people, we just leave our brains at the door. Is that true? So are we just irrationally reading the Bible and thinking that, okay, I'm just following this because this is my culture or this is tradition? Is there really evidence for Christianity, right? So that's what we'll be exploring. Please bring guests. We should start to give prizes for those who bring the most guests. Okay, so anyway.
1 o'clock.
Yeah, 1 p.m. New starting time instead of 1:30.
All right, sir.
So Marcel, yeah, we're gonna be ending. Yeah, I know you have to go. So thanks again. We're closing the meeting and we'll hopefully see you soon, God willing. All right. Have a good rest of your evening. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.